So back to our top story, the series of rulings from the European Court of Human Rights on religious discrimination in the workplace here in the UK. Joining me is today's winner, Nadia Aweda, a British Airways employee and the only one of 4 applicants actually to be successful. Also here are Andrew Williams, Director of the Christian Legal Centre, and Andrew Copson, Chief Executive of the British Humanist Society. And Mr. Aweda, if I could start with you, what does it actually mean to you that you have now won the right to wear a cross at work?
Well, I'm very jubilant and pleased, and I'm very pleased that Christian rights have been vindicated both in the United Kingdom and Europe.
Some people would say it was unnecessary to take it this far because BA, I understand, had already changed their policy to permit you to wear a cross.
Yes, but the ethos of the matter is that British Airways changed their policy under due pressure from the public and MPs and bishops. I believe that the Archbishop of Canterbury threatened to take Church of England money out of British Airways unless I was reinstated. So I was reinstated because they lost a lot of money. They didn't reinstate me because they said we respect you as a Christian and you have a right to wear a cross. No, they changed their policy because they were losing a lot of money.
And why do you want to wear a cross at work?
Because I would like to make it known that I am a Christian, a silent witness to the Lord Jesus Christ, his death, his crucifixion and resurrection, and his coming back again in glory. I would like to be respected.
So this is to communicate to the people you come into contact with your beliefs?
Silent contact, because I have colleagues that are Muslims who wear a hijab. I have colleagues who are Muslims who do not wish to wear a hijab. So they have a freedom of choice. Either they wear it or they don't wear it. Everybody has their own right and faith and makeup to be able to express their faith in their way and manner. So why should I be discriminated against on par with other colleagues?
Andrew Copson, anything wrong with that?
I don't have particularly strong feelings about your case, actually, about this case in particular. I think there's one distinction to be made, for example, between a hijab and a cross, which you've just brought out, which is that in the case of someone wearing a hijab, they're wearing it because they think that that's their religious duty to do so, whereas in the situation you've just outlined about wearing a cross, it's because you want to communicate a certain message to other people.
But
so
equally,
that's
not wearing a cross is making a statement as well, so isn't it?
I don't think so. I mean, no, I don't think so. Not in the same way. Not wearing a cross is not saying, because many Christians don't wear crosses, but they're not saying by not wearing a cross don't believe in Jesus, are they? But I mean, this is a less interesting case to me than the other 3 that were lost, because I think the important principle that the court used, and which I very much support and which I think most people support, is to say, look, if someone wants to manifest their religion, that's their right in a free democracy.
And you don't have a problem with that?
And I don't have a problem with that. My problem is when that manifestation of your religion starts infringing the rights of other people. So in the case of a marriage counsellor who won't counsel gay people, in the case of a registrar who won't perform civil partnerships, in the case of a nurse who won't wear a cross on a lanyard or a pin but on a chain, wants to wear it on a chain, and that gets in the way of her duties as a nurse. They're the case, I think, which are more important. Now, if it's not harming anyone, I actually think that people should be allowed to.
I mean, those are quite significant defeats, aren't they, those rulings in the European Court on that matter?
Actually, we've made some headway in these rulings, if you actually look at what's written in the judgment. And so there is some good news. It's not absolutely awful for the 3 cases that were lost. And indeed, the Christian Legal Centre...
No, but I mean, the principle's been established that you can't put your principles above the service which you're employed to provide to the public.
Well, I think this is what's very important to understand about what's come out of Europe. First of all, they have said quite clearly that believing that marriage is between a man and a woman and that sexual expression should be within that construct is actually a religious belief. It flows from Christian faith. That the cross is a Christian symbol, and that wearing the cross is a manifestation. They weren't ruling on Christian
faith, they were ruling on what you can do in the workplace,
what was very
and
important,
how you can imply your principles.
What was very important, Adam, actually, in these cases, because this principle was being contested here in the United Kingdom in our domestic courts. What was very important to win in terms of principle was this idea that believing that marriage is between a man and a woman and having a conscience about that was actually something that flowed from faith.
But that's a matter for you. The question is whether that should affect your duties as a worker.
And so what the court then did was this. They said, this is a very important right. This is protected under Article 9. It is
freedom of thought, obviously.
Freedom of thought, conscience and religion is protected. That's something that's very important. Now what we wanted them to do was then make create a balancing exercise at the European level, because what we've found at the domestic level is that where there is a conflict of rights, the homosexual rights have trumped the Christians' rights. And in fact, what the European Court wanted to do in a sense was just wash its hands of that. It wanted to say, we're going to throw it back to the domestic situation. We're going to say that there's a massive margin of appreciation. You know, the reality is this: if the employer had accommodated Gary McFarlane, they would have agreed with that too, because they said it was all to do with the employer's discretion. And that's what's concerning for us.
How do you feel about these rulings, your colleagues?
Well, I would like to address what you said. Muslims who wear hijabs wish to communicate also that they are Muslims, because on occasions they would fast, and on occasions they would say, sorry, this is haram, this is forbidden. So yes, it is a form of communication to know that they are Muslims by wearing a hijab. No more than a Christian wishing to communicate that they are a Christian by wearing a cross.
But how do you feel about the rulings against, on these questions of homosexuality and others,
well,
of people being able to apply their principles in their work?
Well, I do believe, and I'm a great supporter of the other applicants, and I do encourage them to go to the European Court of Human Rights, because everyone has a freedom of choice, in all honesty. I wouldn't enforce my beliefs on anyone, and if anyone doesn't wish me, like I want to get married, if anyone doesn't have a blessing to say we wish you well.
If you have a job to cater with someone, I mean, you could, I don't know, working on an aeroplane, say, I don't approve of homosexual couples, therefore I'm not going to give you a drink.
That is not relevant, because you're not exercising religious rights or according to the Bible.
Isn't it the same of not providing them a service?
It's not. It's absolutely not. That is something that sort of example, or making that comparison, is an extremely unfair one, because we're talking about Christian conscience. We're talking about the facilitating of a practice that is contrary to faith. This is certainly not about serving drinks. And let me say this: in all of our cases, in all of these cases, no homosexuals ever...
we had the case, didn't we, of the people running the bed and breakfast, for example.
They've never been refused a service. Never been refused a service. So Lily, in Islington, and this was found as a fact, even in our courts, that Islington could provide a first-class service in terms of civil partnerships. No same-sex couple was ever turned away. Same with Gary McFarlane. It was only a hypothetical situation.
Okay, I'm going to be talking in a minute to Eric Pickles, the Secretary of State for Communities. Now, he's making a speech today, and he's saying, in his view, Alistair Campbell may cart, but we, namely the government, do God, he says. Faith provides a clear moral compass and a call to action that benefits society as a whole. What do you think of that statement?
Well, I think that his statement is pretty typical of the political wind that's been blowing around these cases. I mean, I see these cases as primarily political. They're lost again and again and again. They've been lost now for hopefully the final time, and the principle has been established that one person's religious conscience, whatever that religious conscience may be, can't override the rights of others. The political case that people are trying to use these legal cases to build is to say, you know, Christians are being persecuted, Christians are being marginalised, and that is very obviously, to me, a front for actually trying to advance a very socially conservative, pro-religious agenda. So my concern is that when politicians like Eric Pickles weigh into these sorts of situations, often not knowing the facts of the case, it's a massive distraction from the legal issues at stake, and I wish he wouldn't do it. I mean, I've yet to find these aggressive secularists that he's always claiming are under, you know, the next rock, and I run the British Humanist Association, so I should be expected to come into contact with at least some of them.
Okay, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there, but I will be coming back to this with Eric Pickles. Thank you all very much.
Some breaking news to bring you. The talk show host Oprah Winfrey has just appeared on the